Have everybody here. All right, we'll go ahead and call in the meeting. What is today? February 12th meeting. It's a kind of not a special meeting. It is a regular scheduled meeting, but we have no agenda items related to the main job of this body. But we do, however, have an agenda and minutes. So we probably start off with the minutes. We want to look at those. And that was for the December 11th meeting, which is, seemed like time's flying.
Long time ago.
Let's see, was everybody here for that meeting? I guess is the first question. Looks like it.
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
Move to
Yep.
approve, Mr. Chairman, if no one sees any other reasons.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second for
I'll
that?
second that.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. We'll call the vote for.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kim. All right, so now, not to hurry this meeting along, so it's not gonna take long, I don't think. Let's see if there's a sequence of events here. All right, so we're gonna do election of officers. It's that time. So let me preface this by saying that there is no real frequency for boards and commission membership change, except normally that's done or can be done when there are new members assigned, and we had new members assigned over a year, almost a year ago. When did you come on? July. I thought it might happen then, but the seat, I think, should evolve and change over time to give different board members the opportunity to serve in the capacity. There have been times where people did not want to take on a position on this board. That's sad to me because the reality, if you volunteer to serve on a board or commission, then you should be able to serve in any capacity of that board and commission, not pick and choose what you want to do. So I've been very happy to serve as your chairman. I'll be happy to serve again, but I don't feel that's something that I need to do. And so the way we would take this, we need to re-elect a officer for the chairman, the vice chair, and the secretary. And I'll talk about the secretary's position first, because the secretary's position, by the statute that guides this commission, appears to have more work to do than they actually do, because the way this board works is we rely on staff, and it's also written in the documents that govern this body, that staff is really our backbone of administration. However, there are things that a secretary can do to help this board, and that is watching the vote counts and who votes for what, and making sure that the minutes reflect the same on the next meeting if it comes up, or things related to minutes. So I would ask whoever decides to be secretary to pay more attention maybe to the minutes than anybody else, to make sure that Julie has all the support she needs, to make sure it's done correctly. All right, so the best way to do this is open the board for nominations for secretary.
I've been through it. I would be happy to do it, but I just can't.
Yeah, that's not Eric, you're
Eric.
it now, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Not necessarily.
All right.
It's like what the chairman said. I mean, I review the minutes. You guys review the minutes. The first few times I was trying to take notes as vigorously as I could, because I thought my role was to basically create the minutes, and then I would rewatch the Facebook videos and see if I could get ChatGPT to transcribe it for me, and it was like not a thing. And Julie does a fantastic job. So I think it's more along the lines of what the chairman said, which is, tracking the votes and making sure that's correct, and having a keen eye towards the minutes. It's not really that much added compared to a normal spot on the board, in my view.
Okay, so we have one person willing to serve. We have an existing person probably willing to serve in that capacity.
I think Rita would make a great secretary.
You think you'd make a great secretary?
To me,
Yeah. I think she'd make a great secretary.
I think
I would
she-
do it.
both of y'all would be great.
I'm gonna make this real easy.
Oh, great. He's gonna make a
I'm
motion.
gonna ask
Take a
Let's
motion.
see. I'm gonna ask Kim if she'll serve as our secretary. I'd like to have you be our chairman again and Eric be our vice chair this time. That's my nomination, if I can put it in one package.
All right. Let me get a pen, write this down.
Well, you got a secretary. It's my job to write it down.
We ain't voted for it yet, because he's actually put 3 nominations on the floor. at
That's
one
right,
time.
that's right.
Can we do that? I like that.
Yeah, because what happens is, the way that would work is I would call for other nominations before there's a vote made. So right now we have a motion for,
Like usually I get ahead of myself, so but that's my idea. Eric, are you good for that? Yeah, Rita?
You've been such a good vice chair, though.
I may not be here this summer. I may be spending a little time away, so that's
Right.
fine.
You'll be in Aruba or Anguilla.
No, not that far, but
Different boards.
we're going to the mountains for the summer probably, or as much as I can be there. So that's a little selfish on my part. I'll try to make every meeting I can, but may not be here every meeting.
Okay, so I'm hearing already, like, just with that, with the vice
Fine.
chair is already,
Secretary?
And my term's up in July, I guess,
He'll be renewed.
unless I re-up.
so
I'm okay with that.
we have a motion that way. And unless would you like to be the chair?
I would prefer that you remain the chair. I like having your experience at the helm.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do whatever my peers here want to do. I'm not gonna.
I like Grady's nomination.
Okay,
Yep.
well, let's, all in favor of Kim being the secretary, we'll make a vote for that.
I'll vote in favor of that.
Aye.
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 Vote for yourself. Or you can say nay. All right, it wins.
4-1.
Well,
All right, so, vice chair.
we should have started with her. We might have changed our mind, right?
Wait, so was that a yes or a no vote?
Yes.
Okay, so not a 4-1, 5.
All right, so we have a new secretary. Vice chair nomination is for Mr. Bergman. We'll call a vote on that. Aye,
Yes.
Aye.
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 All right, so it looks like anybody else want to be a vice chair, we'll vote for that. I don't hear it. We got a vice chair. And then we'll get a vote of confidence for the chairman to remain the chairman.
So I was gonna actually nominate him to be the chairman, but you said you wanted to mix it all up. So I mean, it doesn't truly, I think both of you are.
Well, I was gonna do the same thing. But I'm hearing Mr. Woods indicate that he may have some absence.
Well, I hope to be on this board for a while. If there's an opportunity the next time, I'd like to offer my name for chair, but at this time, I think the continuity would be probably good. I'm still learning anyway. Every time that you bring things up, Mike, I learn from that and from you other folks, I think. But certainly consider me for the next opportunity because I will take you up on that.
All right, well,
How frequently do we do this, or can it be more frequent?
it
Or
could be annually. We can set the policy on the boards, the way that,
Should be, right?
It is annual, isn't it? Yeah.
But we didn't do it because I came on October a year ago and we haven't had any change in that length of time.
We were remiss.
at a minimum, right?
all right,
Unless there's some circumstances that forces.
all right, let's bring it back to the focal point of what we're here to do. We have one vote left on the table we haven't voted on, and that's for the chairman's seat to remain what it is. So we'll start down here.
I'll vote in favor. Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote aye for myself.
Aye.
Okay, so we have a new board of officers for the HDRB. And that's one part of the business. And then the next part of the business,
Before we leave
Yeah.
that, Kurt, because I think with the appointments, when did you come on? In July? And I should, and Eric should have come on also in July, but there was a carryover because all the sort of politics taking place at that time.
Right.
We didn't
Took a
come
while.
on until October.
Well, she came on in July. We came in on October prior to that. July
Right,
start,
right.
Yeah,
You and I, normally, our appointments would have taken place July. as well.
under a normal schedule.
They
That's
went
right, yeah,
through a delayed
right.
process because of, what was happening at the time. we don't need to go back to. So it really means that July 1, the first meeting in July, we would do this again if we're following the annual. Because if we're a year behind, well, we're 6 months behind.
Well, I think we were just trying to keep it at the beginning of the year, but if anybody changes, we could,
Well, but when you have new appointments come on, then they're locked in. When you have new appointments come on, that's when you ought to have new officers, because those folks,
okay. Yeah, I mean, we can hold it in August instead.
same thing with.
That's what I think.
Just it was like, I think, October, November. the last
Yeah, it
one.
was.
It was kind of a strange,
Like county council, when they're seated, then they pick a chairman and vice chair. The mayor pro tem is done January following the election in November. So I think we ought to get back on that cycle, whether.
Okay, I think we can do-
I just think we ought to follow that cycle.
Well-
Can we put that in the minutes? Can we make a motion that occurs annually on
I think-
August
Is
meeting?
there already something in black and white that dictates that?
It is. It probably just
I think
needs to follow.
It actually, I don't know what it says in the code, but it seemed like what I read was that the services can be on an annual basis, you can renew officers. But because we have a split time period for the different seats, we're gonna have a constant possible change. Now, there's times when you'll get reappointed possibly, or if you want to be reappointed, they don't necessarily have to put new members in every time they have
Right.
a time period come up.
I'll probably run again.
But the new members always are seated, typically seated July 1.
Mhm.
That's right.
And that'd be appropriate time to do new members,
That's what.
new officers.
Right.
Every
Because
time there's a
if-
flip, there ought to be a opportunity to.
Right, because
new
if I'm a chairman and I don't get reappointed, well, you would have to have a new chairman anyway at July 1. So it needs to be
Exactly.
on that same
Okay.
cycle.
yeah, we'll just plan on if, whenever the new people are set.
That's what we should
in
try.
July, But, like last time, it took months.
Me. Yeah, July is the end of June or whatever. Yeah.
So I think we just, July 1, we just do this again. If we keep the same people, that's fine. But I think we ought to get back on that schedule, which
Or
is
August, because I don't think they're appointed until July, right? Were you
Yeah.
at the July meeting?
whenever,
Yeah.
first meeting
June
after
30th is
July
the
1.
last day.
Oh, okay.
All right, that's down the road. Let's figure that out when
All
we
right,
get there.
next you got your waterfront park.
Got what?
Waterfront park.
All right, so look, yeah, we're moving down the agenda. We have one more agenda item. And you've all probably, I'll brief you on it if you're not aware of what they're asking. They've asked, two of the citizen boards in the city to serve on a new commission, a temporary commission. It's called the Waterfront Park. Actually, it's the Waterfront Park Committee. It was actually a Waterways Commission. I don't know how it became part of the park. But it really started based on the marina, conflict with a contract for an operator, is what the discussion began. And then the council decided through citizen input to put together a board or commission, like a blue ribbon panel to study the waterfront. I think they expanded it to the park, the entire waterfront area. And they've asked for the HDRB and the planning commission both to put a member on there plus citizens at large. So right now, we're looking for someone on this board to serve in that capacity as a member of the Waterfront Park Committee, the way it's written here. Does anybody have a burning interest to serve on another committee? Anyone?
I don't at this point.
I just think, when we got the email from Kurt, I thought you were the ideal candidate because of all of your history, the knowledge you have of the history of the waterfront park and your construction background. I just think, for me personally, you would be a better voice for all of us.
I'll be glad to serve, but I just don't want to. I'd rather be nominated to do that than try to volunteer to do it. Now, I did put my application in as a citizen at large because I didn't think we'd have a meeting, just so for clarity. I didn't think we'd have a meeting because we didn't have agenda items, and there's no way that I will do business outside of this chambers
Right.
or the HRB. So I wasn't going to email or call you, ask you to volunteer, because I think that's not transparent enough in these times. So waiting for a moment like this to say, hey, does anybody want to serve in that capacity? I'm not totally excited about being on another board or commission entirely, because I don't know how many hours it will take up. But I'm willing to do it if there's no one else up here wants to do it.
I actually agree with Rita. I think I think that you and Grady both tend to be a good voice of reason when it comes to policy and also having a good understanding of construction. I'd be happy with either of you. I think you guys both of you would represent the board well.
We don't even know
We don't
don't know the ground rules yet.
And
Things
they had
have
a
been
lot of
discussed.
nominees last night, right? It was like, when I was watching, it seemed like it was never ending.
I don't know how often they're gonna meet. I would certainly contribute, but I have no, Mike, if there's an alternate or something like that, that needs somebody else, I'll be glad to, but I have no issue with you. I certainly, you've got more background on that than I do, but.
Well, the knowledge you have of when it was all done, and the background and.
Well, I do have a history of the park considering the time on council, and institutional knowledge may be important for that board to hear, because what I heard last night was a lot of newcomers
Yeah,
volunteering to serve that probably doesn't understand how we got here.
exactly.
So I'll go ahead and make a nomination of Mike Sutton to be on that committee.
We have a motion and a second on the table. All right.
Are you okay with that, or are you gonna be upset about that?
You look, I knew it was gonna wash out one way or the other, and I was gonna go home happy if I wasn't the chairman and happy if I wasn't on that waterway committee.
Yeah.
So I'll go home happy anyways.
You applied, so you obviously,
Well, I didn't want the board not to have a member on it, is the key. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table, 2 seconds on the table. Go ahead and call the question.
Aye.
I,
I'll vote aye for myself. Okay, so we have completed all the items that are on the agenda. I do have one thing I want to add that we might have brought here, didn't have time to, was that the new materials study that we did in one of the previous meetings where we allowed the Cuthbert House to use a synthetic porch decking. They have now completed that project, and I went down by and shot photographs and did an inspection of it last week and found it to be everything I hoped it to be. And so now it's a test of time. So I encourage the other board members to go, kick the tire with that, take a look at it, see if you have any things, and maybe at a future meeting we can have on materials, we can have that discussion. Because I think the next step for us is watching that material over the next couple of years to see how it weathers. Like, I'd like to look at it at a hot summer day. I'd like to look at it at a cold winter day to see if expansion and contractions cause any issues. So I encourage you to look, but I'm very encouraged with the first cut, how it appears. So we might have done something really wonderful for longevity.
I think so.
Any other business? Yes, sir.
Since we have time, would you like to have like a spring or summer, training session? Like, I think we had talked in the car in the last training session that everybody seemed to think it was a good time.
Yeah.
And there was some discussion that whether you, Mr. Chairman, would like to give a tour when it's a little cooler outside. Of maybe this would be a good place to visit if you wanted to do a training session to look at how the new materials look. And
Well, I think we should look for every opportunity for any training relates to what we do in our own backyard. Obviously, each of us have professional lives that do things that may or may not relate to architecture, history, preservation, art, the arts in general. And those are all important to continue doing, but understanding what's actually happening in our own backyard is probably some of the best training we can get to see the pros and cons, just like the Cuthbert House. Looking at that porch deck would be a good exercise as a group. So yes, Kurt, I think we do need to schedule training, and I don't care when it is. I think it's anytime we can do it.
I think springtime's a good
yeah,
Like
April, May.
April, May's probably ideal. When we do it before,
say it again. Yeah, that's why I was thinking April might be a little better than May. It starts to get kind of hot by then.
we did it last time, what, in
Was
July or August or?
It was hot. It was
Very
hot.
hot.
So what, I guess what we need is to understand what we're trying to do, how much time we have, whether we need to do last time we think we rented golf carts or walked, I can't remember.
Walked.
Walking's good for us.
And then it's just a matter of any specific
Out behind it.
interest. Whether interior studies or exterior studies. I mean, exterior is where our preview is.
Right.
So I don't know. We need to come up with a list maybe of what we'd be looking at before. I mean, I can walk you around and talk to you all day, but that's not constructive. I think we need to have some outline of something that we could actually define. So-
Yeah, I think a mixture of preservation and conservation districts, and then some of the more complicated structures versus some of the more simple structures. So something that where we can hit a confluence of, or a mixture of, topics
You
that's
know,
worthy of discussion.
I had an idea. We probably should, the Conservation District, has been the most active, changed environment. And I think it might be a good idea. It's a little bit spread out. So the problem is, how do you really encapsulate a full view of that
A lot of
neighborhood?
walking.
So it might be golf carts or a bus. I don't know, but
Yeah. Golf
somehow.
carts might be good.
Yeah, that's true. I think if we could include some of the sites that were discussed a few sessions ago about, that were compiled, that were candidates for, not candidates for demo, but candidates for stabilization. And we could walk through some of those and see, how those were stabilized, or ones that are close to needing it, would also be good for a walkthrough.
And some of our completed projects, since many of us have been on the board. I mean, the 1401 Duke Street project, I went to see the other day and they did a great job.
Which one is that? Is that the
That's the old store.
art studio?
Yeah, that's now the Friedman Arts.
Okay, well, it sounds like that might be a good target area, is the conservation neighborhood, to understand what changes happen. What I'd love to see is some examples of new construction that's been passed by either this board or previous boards.
Mhm.
And do a subjective critique, is this what, do you visualize this particular project, or are these types of projects as being what the code supports or doesn't support? I mean, because things like I've noticed is that a lot of the houses have gotten bigger and bigger over time, so the scale of the structures has really impacted that neighborhood. Not that I think it's good, bad, or indifferent, but it just, that's the trend, is everybody wants to fill the entire lot, and they want to build as many square feet as they can. And, we're making those decisions, allow that to happen, but not only this board, but the form-based code, the way it's written, allows the setbacks and stuff. So we're stuck with a, already pre-described palette, so to speak, when it comes in before the board. Meaning they have this much room and they want to fill it up. It's very hard unless you have context for adjacent historic structures that you can really use as a measure to say, like, we don't really want that full lot here because you got this little, unique
Right.
historic building next to it. So those are discussions, like, we could look at something and say, was that appropriate for this streetscape because of what you see that's here that should stay here, right? Those type of philosophical discussions, I think, would be good for any board.
Yep.
And two, I was visiting with some of my neighbors the other night and they grew up here in Beaufort and they were telling me how the Point used to be. They had a mobile home park in the Point and they had, and I was like, what? And these are things that most of us who moved here in the past 10 to 20 years didn't realize. You probably knew that, Mike, because you grew up here. But I think knowing some of the history and what it used to be like, that it's now not allowed, I would like to learn a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, I'm sure that we'll get some other help maybe on the training, but if we can get a date set
Sure.
first.
Yeah, I think, how about for next meeting, we'll come up with I'll put together a little thing that, like a agenda or a plan
Outline of what
agenda,
we'll
which
do, yeah.
is, I hear, look at new construction that's been recently approved and how it fits the context of the neighborhood. Look at the old material, like the Cuthbert House and how those new materials held up. Look at 1401 Duke Street, and then there was some talk about looking at some properties that have been recently stabilized.
Mhm.
Last few years. So does that sound, that's a lot? It's a lot.
That's good. But it may, because that neighborhood's so spread out, it might be better for a bus rather than golf carts. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
Or bring your own bike.
It's just easier to see things, you know, when you're down, going slow and not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to, I mean, golf carts are great or walking or biking, but it's just, we gotta be able to stick it out and get to each of the, it's so spread out, you know?
Yeah.
The work zones are so spread out.
Okay.
So that's
we'll-
good. I think next meeting, if we get a rough
Do it,
outline, we
yeah,
can hash
do
out the
an outline.
details
Yeah.
instead of.
And then if you have, look at your schedules and, I mean, we could even do late March or early April, you know, before it starts getting hot. I don't
After
think you all
the
want to be out
pollen.
there when it's 95 like we did last time. So.
And then one last thing that I get just popped in my head that I didn't want to ask Kurt in front of the board was, the follow-up on new construction. Did they build what we approved?
Yeah, in fact, Christopher and Nick just went out there, like yesterday, right? The, 1401 Duke. Yeah. Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
checked,
we're inspecting all of that new stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
So the one I called you about, you think it's okay?
Which one was that? I can't.
In the King Street, I think it's the
Oh, the one that you felt was maybe too big.
next to, behind the jewelry store on King. That has the oyster shell sprayed stuccoed front,
Yeah, we'll have to check that.
That
Do you know how to know
Prince
the address?
Street,
Prince,
behind
maybe.
the jewelry store,
Behind the
behind
jew-
Jeweler's Bench?
Yeah,
That's,
Oh, that,
is
on that
that, oh, that
tiny
is
lot.
King, that is King. I know which one you're talking
it
about.
was a tiny lot.
no, the problem is, we go through these gyrations, these steps of approvals, and then it takes 6 or 8 months, a year, something comes out of the ground, and then you drive by and you go, wait a minute, I don't remember that being an approval process.
No, we're inspecting every single thing that, once when it goes for a permit or before a CO, it gets a design review inspection based on the COA, what you approved.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, there's been a lot of, over the years of change, was it certification, change after certification? And see, that's the pace of the construction and a builder and an owner not wanting to slow down and come back to the city to say, hey, we changed our mind. And so they try to get away with it, and then they get forced to come in here, and then we have to, what do we get put on the spot, because what am I gonna do? Tell them to tear the roof off? Am I gonna tell them to take the windows out? That's an economic hardship at that point, and you're like, I don't know, I mean, what power do we have? The only control that a municipality has would be certificate of occupancy. And that's at the end of the game, and, I don't know, there's a judge in the country that would hold that up and say, oh, you can't let them move into their house, they just spent all this money.
Yeah, because did they ever make all of the changes we requested on the Bay Street quadplex?
No, we forced them to pull out a lot of the
Would-
railings, all that stuff.
That might be just a good thing to have as a discussion during one of the meetings anyway, because I don't know if there's a lot of different places I could go. You could levy a fine, but depending on what the fine is, then all you're doing is authorizing changes as long as they pay a fine, right? Then it's legal for a fee, and you don't want to incentivize that. If you want to try and enforce the approval of this board, whatever the certificate was granted from here, for their project, then to your point, based on the speed of construction, it's almost like you need a separate staff person to periodically go by these projects and see, in what phase of construction are they doing finished material? Have they done siding? Is it the appropriate lap? Is it the appropriate reveal that's been approved? And so these require consistent follow-ups or weekly drive-bys of somebody to check. And then it's easier to check on then because you could put a stop work on it and force them to come into compliance. And at least it's not after they've spent the final $100,000. But I agree with you. That's a problem for enforcement. How do you enforce that? And
I don't really think we have too many problems right now. It's usually for new builds. It's because someone is building their new dream home and, they get the idea they want to change something, right? Like a window or a exterior material, or I think everybody understands how this works, right? And that's usually where all the issue comes from. It's not the historic. I don't remember any real historic, we've dealt with them. I think Carrie Tolley was the last one that kind of changed some things after the fact and
Hmm.
had it brought back to this
Well,
board. But
it-
usually it's the new build and it's usually like minor, like details that,
Well, the interesting thing is, it's new construction, but when I see spray-on oyster shell, and I know that I've spoke against that many times up here, and I don't remember this board ever approving that specifically
No,
on new construction, so, on any construction.
yeah.
So I don't know if we slipped up and that fell through the cracks. It's an expensive mistake if it was done, but
There's one on
ironically, it's the
Congress.
same architect that did the last one.
Cause there's one on Congress. Remember, I think we made them change the siding on that. They had the siding, they had the textured siding.
Oh, yeah.
And then they've got that spray on stuff on the bottom.
Yes, with shell stuck in it.
Yeah,
He did that. See, that wasn't approved.
no,
And that's just about how, what do you do after the fact?
right.
Um, I don't know, one thing I don't want to see in my own town is I don't want to see an atmosphere of adversary where citizen boards who aren't paid, who volunteer their time, feel like they need to go out and be an enforcer.
Mhm.
So the last thing I want to do is see someone on this board, including myself, go out and tell people you're doing it wrong or you got to stop. That's not our position. So the vigilance is important.
yeah, I don't think we've gotten any complaints in a,
Well, see, no one's going to know how to complain.
oh, no, but they all get a final inspection and,
Okay.
we take notes about anything that's different. And if it's really minor, we don't take them back to the board. But again, it's usually the new houses that, I mean, there's only been a handful since I've been here, so.
So your point is that it's infrequent enough and rare enough that it's maybe a non-issue?
Yeah, I think so.
And you've got a full staff now, which.
Yeah, we have a
is-
staff now and, they go on multiple inspections a week now, so we're catching it, I think.
Okay.
But we're trying to be reasonable, like I know, like 1401 Duke, I think one of the windows was like slightly smaller or in a different location than it needed to be, but it was not facing the street, so we just kind of,
Yeah.
it was a minor thing, so it was like, does this need to go back to the board? No, I think, it wasn't a major street or anything, it was a minor difference, so, I mean, we're trying to be reasonable.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. I would like you to look into the one that I mentioned on King though, to make sure,
Which I do remember that.
they're not too far because it stands out like a sore thumb.
We'll have to drive by now.
All right. Also, the strategic plan is the 24th through the 26th, so the chairman has a seat at the table for that from the 24th to 26th at the Black Chamber of Commerce, so I just want to remind
Yeah.
you.
And I generally can't make Monday and Wednesdays. So I've asked the vice chair if his schedule allows to sit in on that. Do you know, Grady, if you're going to be available for any of that?
What's that?
Not him anymore.
It's Eric.
The strategic meeting with the city, remember I emailed you on that? I know you got a busy
The
plate.
24th through 26th. I had ignored that because I previously was not the chair or vice chair.
I didn't respond until they said Grady, then I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's fair game.
You
So
said that-
the bottom line is, having a board rep in the audience at the meetings could prove to be important. There's a lot of minutia there that doesn't really apply to historic preservation, but
Yeah, I'm looking at my calendar right now.
And when somebody can't be there, I'd be happy to fill in.
okay, that's good.
I think I could make it. I think I
Good.
could make it to both. You said Monday and Wednesday you're unable to be there,
It's Monday and Wednesday. I'm not free until after 2:00.
so I could cover down until then.
I just don't know if it's important for me to roll in at 2:50.
Either way, I'm saying Monday and Wednesday I could cover
Okay.
down, yeah.
Well, feel free to take the position and go sit and learn more about what the city's trying to do or may want to do.
Okay.
All right. That's it for you. That's it for us. All right. Anybody want to make a motion to get us out of here?
Move to adjourn.
All right. We are adjourned.
All right.